You have another stack of extra stuff starting on page 75 from an entirely different program. We're not going to talk about it, but I just want you to know you got it. We are beginning on page 84 with Copywriting Hijack number 13, which looks like this. And so when you think about what gets people's attention, to Dan's point, what captivates their interest, I want you to think about something that has happened in media over time. So in the 1950s, all news content was completely separated with borders in between. Meaning, there was what is now called hard news, world affairs, national affairs, at the local level, fires, robberies, killings, road closings, hard news. And a hard news cast dealt entirely with hard news. That's it. If you watched the Today Show in the David Garroway and Florence Henderson black and white days, the Today Show was a news show. It was not an entertainment show. Sports news was segmented. In the newspaper, of course, a sports section. And no one in sports was outside of that section. So if you get an Akron Beacon Journal, an Akron newspaper today, LeBron's on the front page. Never would have happened in the 1950s. I don't care what was going on. He'd be on the front page of the sports section. He wouldn't be on the front page of the main news section because he didn't belong there. Entertainment news was in the newspaper in the entertainment section. There were no entertainment-only TV shows like Entertainment Tonight, and that stuff all came along later. But there were gossip magazines, right? So LA Confidential, you know, those kind of things. That's where that was. And it was entirely, everything was fenced off. And then gradually it began to kind of drift and what really is news and all the way to where we are now, where not only is there complete overlap and no fences, often non-news is given priority over news, even in what is purported to be a newscast. So the lead on the CNN evening news might very well be Katy Perry's divorce or pregnancy or whatever it is going on with Katy Perry right now before we even get to the fact that Russia invaded the Ukraine. Okay? And so like Muhammad Ali's death and funeral, right, which has dominated every news media there is. In 1950, that would have been sports news. All the way probably into 1970, it would have been profoundly segmented. It wouldn't have, for example, preempted the CBS Evening News to be live at Bill Clinton's speech at Muhammad Ali's funeral. Wouldn't have happened. So what it has done is it has turned all media into People magazine. That's really what it's done. Right? And people have now become ever more fascinated with people and less fascinated with everything else. So here's newsstand. So here's kind of what we would expect, but still the amount of it is amazing. So this is just this week's stuff, last week's actually. So I don't even know what the name of the damn magazine is, Closer. And so the main deal is Robin Williams and what the world never knew about Robin Williams. And inside is Robin Williams' hidden life, right? And also in that magazine under Health Update is what's-her-face from the Mary Tyler Moore Show, who has not yet died. And then, too soon. Then we have In Touch, and there we have Johnny and Amber's breakup, and the $400 million divorce from hell, and et cetera. And inside we have my friend Joan and how much she spent for stuff that is now being auctioned off at the Sotheby's auction. And by the way, she could spend. Joan's joke about her place in New York, which is where all this stuff is from, is this is how Marie Antoinette would have lived if she had money. And so all this is real. I mean, a $150,000 antique toilet and an $800 silver dog bowl and so forth. And here's OK Magazine. And we have the Depp thing, less important with them because they're pregnant. And then here we have Depp also inside their toxic marriage. And here's why she's finally divorcing Lamar. All right, so it's all in those kind of magazines. The next time you're at a Barnes & Noble store, just check the whole newsstand. I chose not to buy one of everything, but I just bought one as an example. Here's Cigar Aficionado magazine. Who's on the cover? Whatever name he's using this month. Yeah. But he could just as easily be over here. And he has migrated to Cigar Aficionado magazine. Forbes used to, their number one issue every year was the 500 richest, no, the number one issue now is the 100 richest celebrities in the world. It outsells the other one by a 3-to-1 margin. If you go to a Barnes & Noble newsstand and you work from left to right, my count roughly the other day was 30% of all magazines that have nothing whatsoever to do with people are all about people. They're not now, the covers are not now about what they were about. It ain't about cigars, it's about him. And it ain't about modern railroading, it's about what famous person has a toy railroad in his basement. And so this is what people are into. Therefore, the foundation of persuasion is now that we are interested in people. So once we're interested in us, and then what we're interested in most is somebody else. Mostly somebody famous, but not necessarily. Therefore, if we are talking to them about anything else, we have something of a struggle on our hands. And that's why you see this change in these magazine covers, is they've gradually come to accept the fact that if they're showing anything else, they have an uphill struggle at selling a magazine. And why they've changed TV news and radio news, because if we're not, so look, it's why Trump's the godsend of, to media, because he's a damn celebrity. That's what's happened. They're all getting a reality TV show for free. That's what they got, right? And they use him, and 12 million people tune in. They don't use him, 800,000 tune in. When you think about, so the worst of the debates pulled over 10 million viewers. The total viewership for primetime cable news is 2 million. That's all. More people watch Entertainment Tonight and TMZ added together than watch the news, by the way. So Trump is like, we want him all the time. The other day they were complaining. So there's a Sunday morning news show. Fox has one and CNN was. Fox's is called Media Buzz. CNN's is Reliable Sources. Thank you very much. So these are media shows about the media, is what they are. Okay, so this is like having your own Facebook site and broadcasting the sandwich you're eating. So they now have an hour to talk about themselves and whether they're doing good media or bad media, whatever. So they're peeing and moaning on reliable sources. about all the media attention being given to Trump, right? So half of the show is them complaining about Trump while they are talking about Trump and showing us pictures of Trump, right? Well, why else, right? And the big thing that they showed, which is funny, so Hillary was giving a speech live at whatever night this was, and Bill was speaking somewhere. And MSNBC, not just Fox, MSNBC, Fox, and CNN, all at the same time, they were showing none of those speeches. They were showing an empty stage with flags and a microphone waiting for Trump to arrive. This is what they were broadcasting, is where he might get to sometime in the future, while these poor saps are actually speaking, and nobody is covering the speeches. MSNBC was kind enough to put it in a little box down in the right-hand corner, captioned Hillary speaking, but you couldn't hear her. You heard Brian Williams and Rachel Maddow talking about the empty stage with the microphone and the flags. And they were understandably, on reliable sources, aggravated about this. But it was their own network, too, doing it. Because an empty stage where he might appear will hold the attention of people more than any of the other ones actually appearing. This is what has happened, right? And so when you understand how, this is where we are at, whether you like it or not. So if you want to seize attention and hold attention, you have to think about people and then stories, because this is where people are at. So here's a current control. That is totally story-driven. So here's a current control. I used to bike past this 200-year-old stone mansion as a kid and dream of living in a house like this. I never imagined that one day it would be mine. Let me share the story of how I built a seven-figure fortune after I lost 62% of my savings and now live the life I always imagined. Now, this is relatively daring in the sense that a lot of people are afraid to lead with a story. They're afraid that they'll lose people before they get to make their pitch. So most people will lead with pitch elements, and if they use a story, they'll get to it later. However, where we are now, in many cases, you're better off leading with the story, because people are more interested in people than they are in anything else. The second thing that the people story does, I'm on year 86, is it's one of those things that switches off somebody's critical thinking. So this is important to understand. To Dan's point, so story triggers things in our brain that are different than what facts and figures and information and even ideas trigger. So it causes different emotional responses. But also, it works differently than assertion. So when I assert X, everybody has a different reaction to that than when I present X in the context of a story about a person or about people. Outright assertion automatically causes a questioning response. We automatically push back against assertion. Well, who says so? Is that true? Do I agree with it? Is there a study? What are the facts? That doesn't sound right to me, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. When it is put inside a story about a person, we don't do that. We get sucked into the story, if you will. And we are likely now to accept the premise when it is buried in a story. So you will see, they do it, most of them clumsily. But you know, they've been doing it since Eisenhower, for God's sakes. You will, at like a political event or the State of the Union speech, they will have the one-legged veteran or the headless college graduate or, you know, the single mom who has had to raise 12 children with no job. They'll have this person with them that so Hillary's going to be running around with Trump U victims, by the way. That's what she's going to be holding them up. And here I got Ivan here, who mortgaged his grandma's wheelchair to take the coaching program and didn't get rich. And grandma now, they've had to bolt furniture casters on her feet and they push her around because she doesn't have a wheelchair anymore. I mean, and she's going to have the person right there. So when she tells you the story, she's going to be waving this pitiful person. So they all do it, right? All of them. Our side, their side, whatever side you're on, everybody does it. Every president at the State of the Union address sits 2 or 3 of these people next to the spouse up in the box, and at different times has them stand up and tell the story about the one-legged veteran or the headless mom or whatever it is they've brought to the party. Why do they do that? Because that story works better than an outright assertion making the same point. Even people who were braced against their assertions get sucked into the story. And the story has a chance of changing their mind because it bypasses the mind and it triggers an emotional response. So that's the second reason to do them. So the term on page 87, there's 2 terms in this. It's from a book called Riveted. There's 2 terms that are real good to kind of lock on and think about and remember as you go ye forth to apply this stuff. One is social explanations. What a great term. So people now have a predilection. We know they want to know why. They want an explanation. But now what they like best is a social explanation. This is so because here's a story about a fireman that proves this point. Not here's a scientific explanation. Here's a factual explanation. Here's a mathematical explanation. No, social explanation now actually works better. Second great term. This is the popularity of horoscopes is an example of our species centrism. What a great term. But he's right. So we are now totally centered on ourselves. And something Dan said is also true. We're training ourselves to be more and more centered on ourselves with that damn phone you have and all the social media. Everybody has decided they're interesting all of a sudden. Okay? And they're all broadcasting. Every moment. And so they are teaching people to do it in commercials, right? So the Arby's commercial has people taking pictures of the Arby's food they're eating and uploading it to their Facebook site. So it's going on in a commercial. Who gives a crap what you're eating, right? I'm like the most interesting guy in the room, and people don't even care what I'm eating, let alone what you're eating. But here we are. We're going to upload this taco. What? But they're training people to do it, and so we are becoming more and more species-centric. We are interested in us and them and nothing else. So what is horribly frustrating, for example, to the global warming advocates is nobody cares about the facts. Regardless of where you are on that thing, nobody gives a rat's ass about the science. And they should have kept on with the one picture they had of the polar bear stranded on the one Gore used. the polar bear on the ice float out in the middle of nowhere who can't get back to shore like they swim. Um, you know, well, but see, people don't know. Say, that thing played beautifully on people's ignorance. See, they think it's the same as a brown bear, right? They think those bears can only walk, right? They swim like fish, these things, right? Plus, they shot the picture like this. As soon as you broadened it out, you know, there's a fishing boat over here, and there's a shore over there, and but the picture of the stranded polar bear was much better than all the facts, because we don't really care about facts. But we'll get sucked into a story, okay? And people who are prone to reject assertions about global warming, now euphemistically called climate change, because they realized it was hard to convince people of global warming when it was 22 degrees below in Duluth. So we'll call it climate change, right? So no matter what the change is, it's part of our crisis. But people who are prone to differ with the assertion, it's hard to resist the poor, starving, dying polar bear who is stuck on an ice floe out in the middle of nowhere because you use hairspray. That is a more compelling way to get there than to get there with assertion. Third thing, this is now a more useful category of false proof. Because people are totally into social explanations, social proof becomes ever more powerful. We can now prove cases purely with social proof. We don't need factual and scientific proof because people are centric to people. When you use this false proof, there are four things to keep in mind. One is bulk. It loops to safety in numbers. The thud factor of, here's a testimonial book with 5,000 testimonials in it. Does anybody go read them? No. Doesn't matter. There's a thud factor to that. So quantity matters. Heft, meaning, do they have authority? Do they have credibility? Do they have believability? Are they relevant? So again, now who they are. If it's a registered nurse, how old is she? How long has she been an RN? Is she specialized in anything? How do we give these people heft? So like when I did Miracle Air, I was looking for, because we're selling to really old people, I'm looking for people that have testimonials, and I'm throwing other ones out. I'm looking for ones that have high trust factor with old people. Pastors, school teachers, firemen, cops, registered nurses, right? This football coach, high school football coach. That's what I want, right? Because of this. Persuasiveness. Now, what's the story? Do we have facts? Do we have details? Do we have specificity? Do we have photos? Do we have documents? Do we have, if we're doing money, are we going to show tax returns? Are we going to show sworn statement by the accountant? And then last, affinity. Acceptance of people as proof goes up to the extent to which the people presented are just like me. This is, again, an argument for market segmentation and showing different things to different people at different times. Because all the quantity in the world and all the heft in the world and what they say is undermined or helped by how close they are to me. Age, family, past occupation, interests, all of that. People, so if you want to convince a fireman to do get rich in real estate, show them firemen. You can show them cops, not as good, better than the general public, but firemen, great, perfect, because he gets that. The guy's just like me. His daily experience is just like mine. So he's finding time to do this in between putting out fires and cooking chili and whatever the hell else they do. I haven't watched Rescue Me in a few seasons, so I don't know what they do. I think it's off the air. But but if you show a bunch of cops to a bunch of carpenters, no matter how many of them you got, they're not as effective as showing carpenters. Right? And so this is an argument for, again, message to market match. I gave you some people testimonial examples. I gave you ones we did for People Stories, for Psychocybe, out of the Archives collection, and also out of the Archives collection, which if you don't have it, GKIC has it available, is stuff, it's old now, but it's great stuff we did for, starting on your page 93, for a client of mine who's in the backyard shed business. And so this is the storybook. It's really 83 stories. It's 83 people stories of shed owners and why they own sheds. Then we did a DVD. And my favorite, but also one of the two scariest ones, it's on your page 97. It's the only one I'm going to mention. Fairy dressing room. See, 10 years ago, I could have done a bunch of jokes, one right after the other. Now, it's prohibited. But very old Dean Martin joke from his act was, they're all at the bar cart, you know, on Frank and Dean and I were on stage and they're at the bar cart, and Dean's old joke was, how do you make a fruit cordial? And everybody laughed without the punchline, which was, be pleasant to them. So I could have done a bunch of jokes here, but they're politically incorrect, and they'll have to edit them all out, and so I won't. But anyway, so here this person has bought this shed. The most unique use I have found for the shed is my annual, this is an adult. The most unique use I have found for the shed is for my annual tea party. I have 6 great nieces, and each year for the past 3 years I've hosted the tea party, and part of the festivities involved dressing up in party dresses and old hats. And yet, so they've got this thing, this shed they put in to have the annual tea party in. The even scarier one, which is on the DVD, you'll see it, I think, if you get the Archives collection. I think the DVD's in it, is we get to this person's backyard, and she never had a dollhouse as a kid. She's crying on the DVD, which is wonderful. She has put in a dollhouse for herself. This is like a 50-year-old woman. And so all the walls are floor-to-ceiling shelves with dolls arranged, and you know, the big fat ones are on the bottom and the little ones are on the top, and they're all dressed up, and she goes in and sits in this place with her dolls. I had this horrible flashback to an experience when I was young and single. And I said to, you know, I really looked green, and my video guy, Chip, looks at me and says, are you all right? I said, I am not all right. You got to finish this on your own. I'm like, out of here. The last time I saw this, I dove right out the window. There's also a joke I can't do, by the way. So, number 14, your page 101. Statements of profound importance. This is really pretty simple, but it's really pretty big. Vast numbers of people understate the importance of what they do. They fear they're overstating when they really are understating. People cannot be relied upon to understand how important what it is that you do is. You have to tell them. And you cannot be shy. You know, Zig's old line, timid salespeople have skinny kids. So you can't be restrained about this at all. Everything, you saw that line I used, which I borrowed, in the Win Trillions thing. It's life-altering money. Not just a lot of money you're going to win, it's life-altering money. You cannot be careful, restrained, timid, conservative about putting across the importance of who you are, what you do, what you want them to do. This is a piece, this is a current control in alternative health. This is also, again, this is a self-mailer. Okay? And so on the back, this is the world's first stem cell capsule. This has got to be a great story. Repairs every organ in your body in 57 days. Okay? That's what this baby does. Okay? So it's the world's first. Well, that's pretty important. It's the world's first stem cell capsule. It's the most. It's not a potent weapon. It's not a good weapon. It's the most potent weapon against illness ever created. Well, if you go back and look, this thing you're at is the most dangerous ever in my entire career. It threatens, this is the same stuff, guys. This is mind-blowing discovery. It's like your own private team of doctors. You can heal yourself from head to toe. Then when you really don't dare make a claim, you pose it as a question. Is it better than a stem cell transplant? Question mark. Okay. Renew every organ in 57 days. The only time you'll see your doctor is on the golf course. It's a great line. It's fabulous, right? Well, so, again, I'm not having a legal conversation with you, okay? I will tell you, when it's done at this level, a compliance guy goes over it pretty thoroughly. Marketers make different decisions about the gray areas in which they choose to operate, but for the most part, they have stopped, and they stop just short of the line by which they will be hung. And then there's issues of, do you refund? Do you, all of that affect. But what you want to do is go as far as you can. Now, this happens to be a high-risk category. So stuff people eat or smear on or suppository into their body, however it is they get it in there, that's a relatively high-risk category. Telling the ordinary moke that he can get rich is a relatively high-risk category. Telling people, for example, that the world is going to end, which Bellinger has irritatingly told me this morning that's not what he really does. But, telling people that the world is going to end and the entire power grid is going to be gone and you're all going to starve, by the way, that's not a high-risk category. The regulatory community pretty much doesn't care about that, and you can make any predictions you want. So different categories have different risks. But here's another question mark. This is a popular technique, by the way. So this pill will put your doctor out of business. That's a step too far. Could this pill put your doctor out of business? Experts say yes. Well, which experts? But it wasn't us. We didn't say it. Break free of illness, even if you've suffered for years. Now that's see what that is the stopping the disqualification, right? Oh, I can't break free. This is not for me because I've had this illness for 50 years. Doesn't matter. That does not matter, right? Independent research study proves effectiveness. Yeah, So this is a good, better, best, by the way. This is an inventory load as well. So this is full of statements of profound importance. That's what it is. They have said everything they can say about themselves, making it as groundbreaking and amazing and miraculous and new as they possibly can. And most people, to your question, most people stop way short of where they could go legally. They inhibit themselves about this far tighter than what the law will allow. And they inhibit themselves far short of what their audience is willing to believe. They stop themselves short. And you want to go to the outer limit of this, that law and you sleeping at night and will allow you to go. The other way to get there, back to your page, whatever it is, my list, the other way to get there is with very dramatic analogies. They are their own form of statements of profound importance. Then there are different ways to create added importance other than statement. Right? So one that I tend to use a lot, that mostly is not actually true, but it doesn't matter, is trademark, register mark, copyright mark, if you have a patent, patent number, if you don't, patent pending, which will be pending forevermore. These things instantly make whatever the hell you've attached them to seem more important. Non-disclosure statements make whatever you attach them to seem more important. The way you deliver things, which we're talking about in a second, it's a hijack of its own, is added importance. So the very fact, for example, so often when I'm talking about direct mail, I'm really talking about FedEx. There should be a statue of me at FedEx headquarters for all of the FedEx packages that I get people to send and that I've sent over the years. Back in the bad old days in the Townsend seminar, they brought trucks over and parked them out in the hotel parking lot because we had everybody sit in a room like this and make out their FedExes to send the recruiting tapes off to their distant friends, relatives, and neighbors. We had one night of the seminar was watching videos while you filled out FedExes. And we filled trucks. And they brought trucks over, but they'll bring you one, by the way, if you got enough. They'll bring a truck and leave it there for you to fill up. They're happy to do that. But the very fact that it arrives by FedEx makes whatever's in it more important than if it arrived by mail. It's a very cheap, very reliable hijack. The very fact. So first of all, if you're B2B, FedEx is always handled differently than anything else. And by the way, it's handled differently than DHL and UPS. And so you have to, I can save $4. I know. It's handled, now you can con consumers still with this stuff. So you can still con consumers with that. You cannot con business people and gatekeepers with this anymore. Those days are over. There was a day when this stuff worked magically with anybody. It now only pretty much works. And they're probably, at some point, they're probably going to get a cease and desist. But in the meantime, this, by the way, whose pitch is this? I think this is a skincare pitch, or a nutrition pitch, one or the other. Yeah. Post-it note on the little booklet. Immutol, how 7 sick salmon, unconventional wisdom, serendipity, and a beer brewery saved an economy, healed the hopeless, and changed the course of modern immunology. Huh? How about that? Now, they have so there's not a specific promise to you, right? But they have the luxury kind of starting with the story because they did this, right? So I use FedEx a lot because it's a cheap way to buy being handled differently, all the way to dance point. So print triggers different things in our heads automatically than does any other deliverable that's digital. FedEx triggers different things in everybody's head than mail. It's an embed. FedEx embedded it for us. All right? And so for $6, $8, whatever the hell it is, you buy a lot. Partiv, who's never here when I want him, he's here when I don't want him, which is a lot. I mean, he's never missing when I don't want him. Anytime I'm going to talk about him, where is he now? Where is the little guy now? Well, you got to occasionally worry about this because he could be trapped somewhere. You know? Years ago, I was at an NSA meeting. John and Greg Rice, the little twin midgets. One of them's dead now, but little twin midgets that were Glenn Turner's bodyguards, and they're really small. And I'm at an NSA meeting, and I hit an elevator button, and the elevator opens, and either John or Greg, I could never tell them apart either. He's standing there. I said, are you getting off? He says, no, I'm waiting for you. He says, I can't reach the buttons. So Partiv could be in an elevator for all we know, right? There you are. There you are. You didn't do anything. I was just explaining to everybody that anytime I want you, you aren't here. But when I do not want you, you never fail to be around. It's uncanny.
I'll give you a take-home version of me.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, wonderful. Just what I need. Just what I need. It's like you are not like a Farrah Fawcett poster. I am not putting you up on the backside of my bedroom door. It ain't happening. So we were doing a consulting day with Dr. I'll mispronounce his name. Biasucci. And he and I invented, it's brilliant. Wait till you see it the first time. But you'll be able to go do it the minute I tell you what it is. The fake Amazon package. Everybody now gets books from Amazon or DVDs from Amazon. And it has a distinctive look, right? If that comes into a B2B environment, most times the gatekeeper is going to pass it on unopened. Doc ordered a book, right? We may not want to know what book he ordered. If I rip this open and it is something horrific, now what? Right? Therefore, this is going to pass on sealed. So we have invented a thing that looks exactly like an Amazon delivery. It's like perfect. I think it'll be as good as a FedEx. But we can ship it UPS, we can ship it by mail, and nobody will know the difference. Okay? So how this thing arrives, I gave you a few things where to skip over them. How this thing arrives matters. Now, another hijack is the classic object. Okay? It changes the way people react to what they get. It engages them. In some cases, it obligates. In some cases, because it was entertaining, it buys a little. Right? So I just thought I'd show you some things. So this is all stuff we mailed in one campaign for restaurant marketing systems the year we did a circus theme. So we mailed everybody one of these. Okay? Anybody that has kids, if you want to take this stuff home, when we finish, be the first one up here to get it. You can have it. We mailed full size. These are heavy, by the way. These cost some money to mail. This is the two-sided inflatable clown. You know, it's got the little feet so you can punch it and it comes back up. So we mailed two-sided inflatable clowns. Well, we mailed them like this, flat, of course. And we mailed to a segment of the list we didn't want to spend that much money on. We sent little inflatable animals, circus animals, little elephants, little monkeys, and a box of animal crackers, which I didn't bring because I ate it. Animal crackers. We sent circus stuff up the yin-yang because really, are you going to chuck that? No. I don't know what you're going to do with it, but you're not going to chuck it, right? And it got your attention. And now we got a chance. We got a chance we didn't have before. So who's going to throw this puppy out? See, it's an envelope. Put stuff in it. Special delivery, and it's got Mickey Mouse on it and hearts on it. Who's chucking it? Disney. Disney Store online. Who's chucking it? And if a gatekeeper pulls this out of a FedEx, are they throwing it out? No, they are not throwing it out. Are you going to feel at least a smidgen guilty taking this home to your kid or using it on Valentine's Day with your spouse and not giving the stuff that, yes, you are? You're going to say, well, I'll give it a chance. I'll take a look at least. I'm not going to take the stuff out and throw it out and keep the envelope. Most people aren't going to do that. I'm going to keep that. You can't have that. Most of you saw, but if you're new, you don't know our bullet mailing, right? There's a bullet in here. So it's got a wanted poster. It's personalized, and there's a wanted poster thing inside. So the pitch piece looks like a wanted poster, and there's a real bullet. I will tell you, every time you use these, there's a problem. Every single time I hear the problem story. Some ambitious postal inspector heard it rattling around in there and opened the mail, and now there were 5 of them, and now the postal inspector guy is on the phone or at your house wanting to know what the hell you're doing. And, you know, we're in a climate where this is kind of a problem. But nobody throws them out, right? I'm going to keep it on my desk. I'm going to give it to a buddy who's a gun freak, whatever, and now I got their attention. Right? And generally speaking, people will tell you it's worth the problems to do the mailing. You can't have that either. Now they bungled it ultimately, and they bungled it in 2 ways. So it's Tiffany's color, right? So it's like a Tiffany box, right? Now, here's how they bungled this, and then they bungled it inside, too. But this is for financial advisors. This is Jim, Larry, this is your business. So they sent it UPS ground. Dumb. We're going to go to all the trouble, and wait till you see what they spent when I get inside. And then we're going to economize with a crappy UPS ground label on the outside of it, right? FedEx. In a FedEx box. That's what you want. And then we put this shitty looking label on the outside of it. Dumb. Needed to have some substitute for Tiffany's, but that sounds like Tiffany, whatever that would be, in the Tiffany typeface and a return address on it. It didn't need to have this. We don't need to know yet it's from Cargill Financial. Why do we need to know that out here? We don't need to know that. We need to know it inside. Now, here's what's in it, which was really cool until they screwed it up. It's Eagle Financial, sorry. So here's the box. It looks like a Tiffany's box, right? It's got their logo on it because God knows we got a logo. We got to put it everywhere, right? But even so, what's inside that's cool is a bunch of real money. Now, of course, they're going after really affluent clients, so it wouldn't have killed them to put 100 in, but so it's $100, right? Which you can't have that either. Now, Here's what they missed up. First of all, this crap's on the top. It should have been on the bottom, or it should have been fastened inside the lid, because it got in the way of me getting to the money. And by the way, how you put shit together matters, right? Half of the direct mail I get has been stuffed in the wrong direction. People open an envelope from the back. They don't, with the back facing them. They don't open it with the front facing them. And morons will load their stuff in with the thing they want to see first facing the front. And often the thing you see first is the order form, which they have put at the back. So this thing shouldn't have been. So here it is. Dear Ms. Noon, please find enclosed 100 examples of our expertise. Did you know that in 1546, so-and-so first coined the phrase a penny for your thoughts? If he had put that penny in a bank in 1546 at 2% interest, today it would be worth $100. We look forward to speaking with you. There's where they really screwed up. So they have done this whole thing as a precursor to cold telephone prospecting, to a rich business owner, CEO. Why aren't we asking her to call me? Or to go to a website and watch something? Or to send back a form to request one of 3 reports? Why aren't we doing direct response? No, we're going to go through all this expense and then we're going to have somebody trying to get her on the phone, which never happened. I don't know if they would have had a shot at her anyway, but they certainly would have had a better shot getting someone to respond to them. But overall, other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, what didn't you like about the play? It's a good package. Many of you have seen this, but I mailed this years ago. You can tell it is, because it's got a VHS and cassettes in it. Google VHS. But this thing mailed shrink wrapped with a sales letter on top and fastened closed and shrink wrapped to the whole NSA list. The contents of the box are guaranteed. It says if you open a box and you listen to stuff and you read the stuff and you think we wasted your time, we'll send you $25 or we'll give $50 to Habitat for Humanity. By the way, the ones who claimed, this is National Speakers Association, nobody sent the money to charity. We paid out some $25. We didn't pay out any 50s. But this thing was hugely successful. Now, cold list is a problem, but a highly qualified list, you can't have this either. Makes all the sense in the world. This is a classic, who it's from, official looking thing. Again, probably won't fool anybody B2B, but it'll fool consumers. So, monitored release tracked by sender. I don't even know what that means. Sounds like a law firm, kind of. Currency disbursement. It is personalized. Let's see if they stuffed it right. They stuffed it right. Good for them. So, here it is. And actually, it's selling silver coins. That's what it's selling. And they did a good job, which we're going to talk about a little later. They did a really good job with their order form. Got to give them that. So this order form looks like, so it's an extension of that disbursement deal. It's a secured currency disbursement form. It's stamped and it's got all kind of crap on it. And down here, here's the little yellow stickum of where you're supposed to, like you see on all the paperwork you sign that you shouldn't be signing. So they did a really good job with that. When you put it in the envelope, they tell you to put it with this side out so all your information is protected from some snoopy person seeing it in the envelope. This is a really good piece. But it starts being good with the envelope. That's how it starts being good, right? Is because it has a better chance of being opened. So, where are we? I did all that. Page 107. This copy is about too bad. This copy is about finding out what your target really wants. That they somehow feel prohibited from buying or doing, embarrassed about wanting, that you can make okay. Now, the good news is a lot of people feel intimidated and embarrassed about stuff that is not illicit. It just seems inappropriate. So the luxury car business was really affected during the earliest years after the 2008 crash. And people would enunciate it. I'd like a new car. I got plenty of money. I want to buy a new car. But I know a couple of my neighbors in my big affluent neighborhood have fallen on hard times. And I kind of don't want to rub their nose in me driving home a new Mercedes. And they would enunciate this to automobile salespeople. It was a factor suppressing luxury auto sales. So had the auto industry been really effective, from advertising on down to salespeople, at making it okay to drive home in the new Mercedes, they would have sold more cars. The best thing is if you can not only make it okay, but you can make it either a badge of courage or a badge of honor. So you will see me constantly doing this with the very idea of trying to get rich and being rich, because many people feel it is unseemly. They are uncomfortable with it. But for my purposes, I need you all in lustful pursuit of wealth. It's on my short list all the way back to day one conversation. Okay? I need you chasing a dream. If you're like complacent, you're not real valuable to me. So I got to make that constantly okay. Thus, pretty much no month's package of newsletters goes out without some dissertation that makes that okay. It may be in one place one month, it may be in another place another month, but I'm going to bet, I didn't check, but I'm going to bet if you take the last 12 months and you go through all of them, you are going to find somewhere me making it very much okay for you to have what I call earned privilege. I gave you, this is from Robb Report. I thought this guy did a great job. You can read it on your own. In defense of decadence. Starts out so, while in the throes of preparing this year's Best of the Best issue, the editorial staff received notification from a certain publicly funded institution that our publication would be banned from the premises due to the decadent and inappropriate nature of its content. Now, that would be much better if he had named the public institution. No balls. But the rest of it's very well written. A couple of ads. So this is for some super high-priced motorcycle that Ducati makes. And until now, we have been asked to take sides, to choose between wicked or virtuous, brutal or sophisticated, refined or wild, gentleman or bastard. You deserve both. That's a permission slip. That's, you know, it's okay. Next one I'll show you, which is from, I put it in the book, but it's instructive to know where it's from, just as an aside. So the next one is actually from DuPont Registry, which is a magazine all about expensive cars. Doesn't matter what the magazine is, the permission slip is that. So this makes it okay to pay somebody to go find you one of those. That's, or one of those, because it's a page ad. $15,000 sale, by the way, in case anybody's curious. Cheap at twice the price. And it's like a boat. The initial cost is nowhere near. So this is just like a boat. Just like a couple racehorses. The price of the horse is a small piece of this puzzle. But the copy's really good. You've climbed the ladder of success, and you want a stunning, high-caliber woman. So this is okay for you to want this. You don't need to feel bad about this. And it's okay, but a lot of people feel it's not okay. Geez, it's really superficial of me. It's really unseemly. It's really, so they want to address immediately, hey, this is okay for you. So that's that kind of copy. I'm watching the clock a little bit now. Number 16, page 112. This just gets a quick mention, but it's instructive. And that is, at some point, how tough should you be? So if you take a look at, like if you go back and look at Brinkley, the goat testicles guy, and by the way, if you don't have that course package, it's really great. There's all these, we've got all these archives of his actual stuff. This is his actual doctor book that he used. This is his actual success story about his hospitals. Audio CDs of his radio shows are in there. It's really a great package. But if you go back to Brinkley, he used, like Dan was saying, he just copied. So Brinkley was a sequential series of steps once he had a lead, and they got sterner and sterner as they went along, ultimately getting really kind of bullying for the people who haven't responded. Well, why not? At some point, you paid to get the lead. What exactly do you have to lose? So at some point, you get rough and you shame people and you push people. And so one of the things you did that now got you to 27% that they're apologizing to you for, right, is you shamed them a little bit about not having responded. And now not only did he bump the conversions by 27%, you told me this morning, you're getting, what, emails or tweets or whatever the hell you're getting. So they're now apologizing for not having done what they should have done, right? Now, when you'll really know you got it right, the conversion percentage tells us a lot, but is when you keep getting the apologies and you get some pissed off ones, right, who are mad about how heavy-handed you were. Now you know you got it about right. I gave you, I forget who sent them to me. Oh, Connor sent them to me. Posters, recruiting posters from the UK for World War I. And I really like, so this one, be honest with yourself, be certain that your so-called reason is not a selfish excuse. Enlist today. Women of Britain say go. This one. Number 3, what will you say in years to come when people ask you, where did you serve in the Great War? What will you answer when your children grow up and say, Father, why weren't you a soldier too? That's pretty heavy-handed, right? I mean, that's pretty rough. And that is, at some point in your marketing process, that is where you want to be. At some point, even if you've been nice to a certain point, you want to turn tough. And you want to make them ashamed and cringing at what they haven't done. Number 17, repetition. We all know it, no surprise. So, there is in copy, in all long-form media, what I call deliberate redundancy. I'm sorry, I'm on page 133 in your manual. There is deliberate redundancy, and often a client, when he sends the notes of the rough drafts back, will have circled the 3 places where I've basically said the same thing, that we can take 2 of these out. Right? Well, no, I noticed them. I put them in for a reason. Right? Same reason you do it in a speech, the same reason you do it in any kind of a presentation. At least a 3 times repetition helps a lot. Yeah, again, if you watch Trump, so next time if you do, you watch him speak, whether prompter or spontaneous, you will find in many cases his cadence is to say the same thing 3 times. And in his case, one right after the other. Bump, bump, bump. And he does it enough, it ain't an accident. He's made up his mind to do it 3 times in a row, however it is he got there. There was a secret about infomercials, still is. Most people don't know it, and it affects how we test. The average infomercial buyer, when interviewed, and it was so common that said that it's probably reliable. The average infomercial buyer watched the show in whole or part 7 times before they bought. In most cases, pieces. They clicked in, they watched 10 minutes, they clicked out. A few days later, there it was again, now they watched through the CTA. A few days later, there it was again, now they watched all the way to the end. Average 7 times. Okay? So test is like 3 markets saturation airing, not 30 markets, 1 or 2 airings in each one. Because if you do the second thing, you don't know anything because you need the 7 times repetition to know. Now this is why, and we do it, obviously, GKC, it's why the one-time webcast is problematic, because they only watched it 1 time, right? So you see us do run-up to it to get some repetition into the run-up before we do the webcast. Little secret, proportion of those who were there for the webcast and then went and watched the replay, the proportion of those who buy is significantly higher than the people who just watched the webcast. On a couple of occasions, they don't really like doing it because it's more work, but on a couple of occasions, I have put in the run-up sequence that you could get a free report sent to you about X, Y, or Z, which really had embedded in it a long-form sales letter that provided some repetition and redundancy of the same thing that was talked about in the run-up videos and was going to be talked in the webcast. I'm trying to get to my 3 or get to my 7 in a format that doesn't really lend itself to it, because repetition in and of itself matters. Look, people don't get it right away. Right? It's why we use spaced repetition learning, because the fundamental fact of that is true. If you move into a new house and you lived in your old house for a long period of time, it will be 7 to 21 nights before your hand finds the light switches in the dark. You will be fumbling, where in your old house, you had totally adapted. You could find that light switch no matter what. It'll take a bunch of repetitions of finding it before you automatically find it. Subconscious has to get it, not just the conscious. And it pretty much only gets it through repetition. It's about the only way it gets it. Now, if you can get the conscious to step aside while you talk to the subconscious, that's helpful. That accelerates the process. And a lot of what we talked about in the previous 2 days is in part about that. But even so, repetition in itself has impact that nothing else has. I think close to the last one, maybe. Yeah, because we're not going to talk about the last 2. But so this is interesting. I'm going to be on your page 135. So what's interesting is, at different points, and particularly on order forms, so Doberman Dan would agree with me, that's another easy way to beat a control. That's something in copy critiques that is generally not good, is the copy on the order form. Most people think of it kind of as an afterthought, when in reality it's just as important as everything else. Hal Halbert did really good order forms. T.J. Rohleder does really good order forms. That order form and that direct mail piece is a really good order form. And if you jump to it ahead of things, there's a pretty good chance it will get you back into the presentation because the order form is good enough. But one of the interesting things about order forms, and sometimes other places, is the voice that it is in. So this is about changing so that the customer is saying it to you, the seller, instead of you, the seller, saying it to the customer, or it being neutral. Because when the customer says it to you, it is more influential on the customer, obviously. So here's order form example. I've given you the A copy is the way you would see it in 90% of everybody's copy. The B is you will see it only in really smart people's copy. Okay? But just to prove it ain't just me, here is Just Got It. And it's got my got an address on it you don't need to see. I have made that mistake before. So this is from Judicial Watch. It just came. It's a fundraising, a letter. Here's the order form. Dear Tom, that's the guy I got the letter from. Dear Tom, I received my Founding Fathers commemorative calendar in good condition. You can be sure I'll display it proudly as a symbol of our shared commitment, yada, yada, yada. And I'm very proud that Judicial Watch is doing what? I understand that Judicial Watch is carrying the heaviest caseload, yada, 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 and now check off how much money I'm going to give you, right? Now, normally, most people would have had that in the other language, right? Tom would have had it in Tom's voice, or it would have been in a neutral voice. They have written it as me saying it back to them. So this is not just me. This is not just a little GKIC crowd who's figured this out and picked it up from Halbert. This is done by smart people in other venues. So the last one I want to talk about, leaping to your page 137, is pictures and pictures plus copy. And every time I have this discussion in some venue, I issue a confession. And that is, the more you are a copy guy, the more deficient you are at the pictures. And I'm a copy guy, so I have to really force myself to pay attention to the pictures. And pictures reinforce copy. They're easier to deal with for people. They may drive people back in to copy, and so they are important. And the best pictures tell a story. They facilitate and advance. So like for authors, Adam's here, Clint's here, you know, the worst thing is the headshot. I mean, stuck in the ad or the whatever for the author or the speaker. Here's a standard headshot, right? It's cut here. It's got the shoulders. We can see he's wearing a tie. He's been posed in a certain way. Does it tell us anything? No. No. He should be on his sailboat, or he should be holding his dog, or he should be holding his book, or he should be in spontaneous consultation, consulting with you. The photo should do something, right? The best pictures in direct response are like this. They are a picture and type box, where the picture and the type has been put together as an image. And it delivers, it telegraphs a story. So often, there's a picture, no type, or hardly any type, or we make the mistake of type, no picture, or a picture that doesn't do anything. This is Boardroom, and they got it exactly right. Right? They have an image that incorporates type and illustration marked to facilitate the story. This is for my pharmacy guys, and Kia Arian does all this. So this is a really good Titanic picture. So this is the front of it. It's a bigger postcard. I shrunk it for you guys. Is the end of the independent pharmacy near? Is it inevitable? Is the industry merely rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic? This is a really good picture of the Titanic. So this is a box just like this. It's built exactly the same way, right? It's picture, type font, by the way. That together tell the same story. One reinforces the other. The back of that, by the way, is the Supremes have spoken. Obamacare is here to stay. We got a little picture of the Supreme Court, even more consolidation, et cetera. So these kinds of images put together with type are really powerful. I wanted to show you this for that reason and others. So here's a little gift for those of you that have local kinds of businesses, brick and mortar businesses. This is from Jeff. This is from Gardner's Mattress, their retail store. So this is their regular newspaper, the Lancaster, whatever the hell it is. Okay? And it's got this wrapper on it. So they've bought the wrapper. So I'm going to take it off and show it to you. So here's the top half. Sleep Inquirer Monthly, volume whatever. Here's the bottom half. Here's the inside. Top. Bottom. And here's the back. Only the back kind of looks like a normal mattress store. The rest of it looks like National Enquirer stuff, right? It's tabloid, and the headlines are written that way. Uncensored organic mattresses, we tell it all. Shocking, try before you buy a new development. She said, I hate, local man buys $15,000 mattress. Revolutionary sleep solution saves marriage. Now, in every case, look what they've done. He's created a picture box. It's exactly what I showed you here. Same deal, right? Image, type. Image, type. Each reinforces the other. It delivers one message all together in and of itself. The wrap, by the way, so it all contributes, but this was their Memorial Day ad, which he said was inspired by the tabloid stuff I talked about at the Super Conference. So this is a $3,500 spend. Friday through Monday in 2015, with what they did before, last year, they did 41 grand tied to people coming in from the newspaper ad. In 2016, from this, they did 87,000, which apparently is a 108%, if you do the math, fact or result. Same deal here. So this is in Natural Awakenings. I assume this is a giveaway. Is Jeff in the room? It's a giveaway? Yeah, giveaway. So now look at our top of the third real estate, right? It's not quite as good as this, but it is this, right? We get her, we get the neck pain, and we get the type, right? This thing, by the way, just in case you're interested, 17 months running. What is it, $1,000 a month? Is that to spend? $1,000 a month, average monthly sales, 30K. Top month, 47,000. Low month, 18,000. They know because it's a separate offer, free pillow offer, et cetera, so that they can track. Little guy, he's actually here. Little guy just created a picture book to explain conversion concepts. Now, this would be deadly if it was sent by itself, but inside a shock and awe package. So this is like a quick and dirty. You're going to get a picture of how this thing works. We could have lived without that. Geez, what do you think? People like you? That's a particularly good one, right? It tells a story. It arouses curiosity. There's a pile of shit. Oh, I wonder what all that stuff is, right? Let me see if we got another good one. Do we got another good one? No, we don't need that one. Here's what a shock and awe, big spread. Here's chairside marketing, big spread. Case presentation package, big spread. Wow box experience, big spread, etc. Again, deadly by itself, but in context, good thing, because it will bring people back into the other marketing material. Okay, now my interest is aroused. I'm willing to read some pages. So this last thing is don't ignore the mix of images and copy. That's why you see all the alternative health magalogs are illustrated sales letters, right? Because it helps deliver the message. And in their cases, largely, if all you do is read the picture boxes and you never read the copy, you still know enough to actually make the purchase at the end of the process. So we have a half an hour for Q&A, the last chance you got. I will say now, as always, thank you very much. I think we've had a great 3 days, and it is as much yours as mine, so thank you. I will let you know a couple of quick things. One, for next year, the last Vicki gave me a note, we were at 54. There can only be 170. So this will begin to be sold to people who weren't here pretty quick. So again, no one will get a lower price than what you can get if you do it here. The work with me and Doberman Dan, we are at 7, and I need a minimum of 10. So that may or may not happen. Those of you who have done that, you will know within a week. It's just us getting the facts out to you that it's a go or it's a no-go. And when we finish Q&A, I will rather quickly be packing up and leaving. So again, thank you very much. I appreciate all of you coming. And it's always a pleasure to work with you.